All right, let's get started. So, thank you everyone for joining me today. This is the first episode of The Construct. It's a new format we're going to be doing on my channel today, and we have my first guest. I'm honored that she is here today. It is pronounced Shauna, correct?
Chana.
Shauna, pleasure to meet you. And please, for those who don't know anything about you, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So, for people who don't know me, my name is Chanaly, but I go by my stage name as Chana. Chana has always been a family nickname, has a lot of love and encouragement behind it. But for people who don't know, I'm also a business owner. So, I started doing spoken poetry officially about 3 years ago when opened my LLC back in March of 2023. One of the reasons why I started my LLC is I started getting more paid opportunities, and I started to work with nonprofit organizations who wanted to not only hear my writing but also wanted to know the muse behind it. I've always been interested in just the volunteer and the community service work, so I really wanted to mix my business and make sure that people were able to not only get to know me as a performer but also as a leader in my community. So she's been going strong, and I'm so excited for the absolute changes that are going to be happening this year. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised.
Beautiful. And I know on your Instagram it says that you are a Latina poet, right?
Correct.
And my first question to you was, how has your cultural background? Because are you Puerto Rican, if you mind me asking?
Yes.
Boricua. Okay. Awesome. I know in Bethlehem and Allentown, there's like Dominicans and Puerto Ricans everywhere. You can't escape them.
Yeah.
Um, how has your cultural background shaped your voice as a writer and as a performer?
Ooh. I mean, just to start off, I come from very humble beginnings, and when I first started my business, just with the name Con Fuerza LLC was just something my mom has always taught me. Through life, you always go through it with strength and resilience, and just in my culture alone, like even though I was born and raised in the States, we always had a connection to the island. If it wasn't me visiting there, it was always just family, always informing us of what would be happening, not just events, but also just kind of like how their lives were able to change with just us living our lives out here, but always sending them, whether it's donations or clothes. Um, my identity in itself, if you don't hear it in my voice, you see it when I walk in the room. So I can't change how I look, I can't change my complexion, I can't change the way my hair is. It's just the way I am. And I think for a long time I had to take what I felt like were disadvantages and turn them into advantages in my life. And my identity came with a lot of community and support. And I think that's just something that's so beautiful, that people who can only be Puerto Rican can just understand the type of support that you get from all across or all around the Lehigh Valley, just on just where you're from. So my culture, it drives me, it grounds me, but I make sure that I speak from experience. I'm not the Puerto Rican voice for my community, but I'm just one out of many.
I love to hear it. And just out of curiosity, did you go to the Puerto Rican parade in New York?
No, but I've always
Okay.
wanted to. But it looks absolutely amazing. I do, however, go to the Puerto Rican parade in Allentown every year.
Yeah, I forgot there's one over there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And did you were you born in Allentown?
Yes. So I
Okay.
was legit born in Allentown on 17th Street, probably the most common hospital there is. But
Mhm.
I think if it's one thing that people don't know about me is, even though you'll hear my English, it's very strong, very well. I was I was born here, but I was actually raised in Puerto Rico for about 12 years. So by the
Oh
time
wow. Okay.
but by the time I came back, I was in Esau for about 2 years. Um, and for a lot of people, they'll stay in those type of classes for more. But for
Mhm.
me, I always let people know, like, listen, I can relate to you in so many ways, and I try my best to make sure constantly speaking Spanish, constantly improving my Spanish, because my mom has been here for about 20 years and she still has an accent. She still can't say certain words. But I think it's just the language in itself is beautiful, but it always keeps me connected to my roots. So,
Beautiful. And I in connection to that, um, since you grew up in, well, you said you grew up more so mixed, but Allentown
Yeah.
and Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah, I've been
What?
here longer than I've been in Puerto
Mhm.
Rico at this point.
Okay. Um, what was your earliest memory of realizing that you had something to say through poetry?
Ooh. I'm going to bring it back to I mean, one of the earliest mentors I can remember. Back in sixth grade, I had an English teacher by the name of Miss Carey. I went to Robb Middle School, which is like down the street from me now. And I remember I had a very tough time in middle school. And she took a liking to me because I was always interested in writing. I would always stay after school, always ask her questions, kind of prompt her for more information. And knowing that I struggled a little bit more, she kind of just took me under her wing and really just kind of gave me more of a guidance in regards of, here's a couple books that you can read to work on your writing. Here's a couple websites that you can submit your work to. And I think if it wasn't for her guidance, I would have maybe enjoyed writing here and there, but I wouldn't have taken it seriously as a form of self-expression or an outlet. Um, if it wasn't for that extra bit of information or that resource that she gave me. So I would say I was, wow, sixth grade. Maybe I was like 12, just about then. So I was still learning how to speak English, but she taught us through music. And music has, from that moment on, I've always incorporated it into my writing.
So, what was the first spoken word that you ever performed, and how did that moment change you?
Really good question. So at that point, I've always written, but I've kind of kept it to myself. I've had 10 different poetry books that I just kind of kept it with me, but I never really took writing seriously up until I was about 17 and 18, where I wanted to perform. So I was running for homecoming court at that time. And my high school at William Allen was hosting a talent show. So people who were in the homecoming court had to present a talent. And I asked myself, what is more authentic to Chana than poetry? And essentially, I wasn't the best dancer, I wasn't the best singer. And if I wanted to portray as the best version of myself, I had to feel comfortable enough to do my poetry. And I had an amazing friend. I'm going to shout him out, Jameek Jones. He's an amazing artist from the Lehigh Valley. He actually gave me an instrumental for me to do spoken poetry over. And I think it was Biggie, A Story to Tell. So my first performance wasn't just a spoken word piece a cappella. It was on stage with an instrumental with a partner at a time. So it was a duet. And I remember getting on that stage, not knowing where it was going to take me, but I felt very comfortable because aside from when I perform, I do have a very extroverted personality. I love being social. I love connecting with people, but nothing makes me more comfortable than knowing I'm just up there and it's just me. It's just my story, and no one can tell my story better than me. And it was nerve wracking, but no cliche. Like I held that mic and it was just my world. And no one could take it from me. And I think finishing it, I think I received a lot of positive feedback and it made me question if I wanted to continue further. And here we are.
That's beautiful. And you know what's funny? Because I noticed that a lot of people that are into the arts, some are afraid to, whether it's poetry, songwriting, even actual artwork, right? Um, it's it can be personal for them,
uh,
and a lot of times they are too afraid to show that side of them, to be, a little bit vulnerable, of like, 'cause it going to be the artwork, that lyric might be so personal to them, they don't want to, it's sacred, if that makes sense.
yes.
And I noticed that with you, I could tell already, like, there's two types of people. There's some people that, like, they get nervous being in front of a crowd, but you are in that, category where you kind of feel like you're yourself, you're alive on stage. And I can tell from your personality that you just own the room, and that's something that I just want to give you credit for. And it's funny you say Jameek, because this anyone who's watching this who's from the Lehigh Valley, everyone kind of knows each other. and
Yeah.
the fact I know Jameek, and I did a this um ge- gender reveal. I was there for his gender reveal and
Oh,
his
I love that.
yeah, and for his proposal that he did a couple years ago. So
Yeah.
that's so funny how everyone like knows each other. But that's awesome. And um, what inspires you writing the most? Is it pain, love, identity, or is it something else
Absolutely.
entirely for yourself?
Ooh. Um, Before we get into that question, I just wanted to
Mhm.
highlight that there is nothing more special than finding out a brand new artist or just meeting a friend who is just starting out. Because again, the type of support that you get from the Lehigh Valley is just like no other. Like Jameek
Agreed.
Jones, I think ever since he helped me out 10 years ago, you know, anytime I see him drop something of an album or a song or just anything, like I'm so quick to share because when you build those type of relationship, it's just so important to maintain them. Because as an artist sometimes you need that support. You
Of
need
course.
not just the invisible support of, hey, I saw that you've been doing music for a long time, like that's amazing. No, we need that physical, hey, share my post sometime, you know, let me know that you're listening, that you're actually really appreciating my art, because I feel like that's very important. But to go back to your question, when I first started writing, it was absolutely out of pain, out of hurt. I don't think I started writing because I was in a positive place. I will say the more that I've matured in my life and I've gone through experience and I've gained such an amazing village, I was able to heal from a lot of experiences that I now can speak in my poetry and just reflect on it in such a brighter light. Um, I used to write about my poetry, about what I've gone through, what I've experienced with relationships with my family. And I think to say that I've healed completely wouldn't necessarily be the most honest answer. I think every day is a brand new day. And when I realize that I'm able to kind of control my own narrative and really just understand myself a little bit more, I want to highlight the fact that I struggled with mental health for a very long time. And I'm very vocal when I say that. And I think my biggest mission when it came down to my poetry is understanding that even though every day might not be the best day, um, I continue to share my poetry and my writing to let you know that you're not alone in this. And I've gained not just support, but I've gained so much friendships because of it, because it takes a long time for someone to feel comfortable to reach out, simply put. So anyone who is scared to share their writings because it's so sacred, I get it. I didn't think I would end up being a performer. I thought I was just a writer who didn't really have anyone to go to, so I just journaled to myself. And it wasn't until I started sharing my writing and having people relate to it and having people say, you know, thank you so much for being strong enough. Um, I continue to push myself because of it. Because if it's not me representing those people, I don't think you're ever going to really hear those type of stories coming out from the Lehigh Valley if someone's not brave enough or courageous enough to do so. So anytime you see me, just know the mission is much bigger than what it is, and that once I gain that stable platform, oh, it's all about elevating it and having somebody else on that platform as well. So it's never just an individual accomplishes something. It's no, I'm accomplishing it so that someone much younger is going to exceed that expectation.
That's beautiful. And I feel like sometimes it takes one person to just step up first to inspire others to follow, you know?
Absolutely.
And it creates, like you said in the beginning, a community, right? Of other people who may be going through the same traumas. Let's be honest, everyone has, um, I've struggled with mental health myself, and um, a lot of people tend to just hold it in and just keep it
Right.
to themselves, not knowing that you could help other people just by just talking, about certain things and expressing yourself through various forms. In your case, with your poetry and your writing, um, it can be a lot more touching and more impactful, and people will connect with that. So kudos to you for not just just thinking about yourself, but you're also wanting to set the next generation in a sense of young people that, or even people around your age too that might want to um, be a voice as well, because everyone has a voice. We're all different in
Yes.
life, right? We all have our own unique perspective, but what makes us so beautiful is that your story, even though we're both Hispanic, right? Your upbringing might be completely different from my upbringing, but we could still like connect and relate, you know, by little things.
Right.
Even we might be complete total opposites, we could still connect and just talk, and um that's something that is beautiful, very beautiful. Um and wow, you said that was very powerful. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you.
uh of course. And my next question, I guess you kind of answered it already, but I wanted to ask you, do you write for healing, for protest, or connection, or all the
Ooh,
above?
that's an amazing question. Healing for sure. I had a mentor tell me sometimes the best therapy is speaking your thoughts out loud, which
Mhm.
for a person that used to just internalize everything, just talking to yourself, just what I do now is part of my writing process is if I feel stuck, I start recording myself. And when you just start with a verse and you speak it out loud, more thoughts tend to follow. And then it just, within minutes, you'll have a full piece or within a day. But it was healing at first. And then once I started gaining just like opportunities or I started going to open mics more, it was definitely inspiration. A lot of my pieces derive around like empowerment, not just for women, but just for if it's not Hispanic women, it's just Hispanic community in general, or just anyone who's struggling with that mental health um, can relate, but also protest. Let's talk about it. There's a lot of, you know, when we're talking about opportunities and we're talking about networking, not everything is peaches and cream. Not everything is butterflies and rainbows. I mean, we'll bring it back to identity. A lot of people might have passed on me as a performer because I am Hispanic. So of course I'm going to speak on what's happening with the immigration and ICE, and I it's always important when people know me as a performer and as a brand, they know what I stand for. And if you can't agree with me, we can agree to disagree, but I'm not going to waver on my beliefs because my beliefs are just a lot more than just, oh, political views. Like, no, we're talking about human rights here. So, absolutely, it really comes down to a protest, but especially when you have a platform right then and there, there's no better protest than being able to walk into a room, whether it's Music Fest, Art Quest, or to any organization, and have them record and take photography of you, and you're making your piece about what's happening in the world. Like, not everything is a fluff piece. A lot of this has to do with real life experiences, and I think it's important for people to not only have the courage to do so, but also understand while you're going to pass up an opportunity, there's going to be much bigger opportunity because of it, because you didn't waver on your beliefs. And that's something I had to, it hit a nerve because um I never, I don't think I've ever been in a position where I was limited to my speech before, and I would hope not to in the future, because I do have a couple pieces where they're just, again, if it's not my internal experiences, it's friends of the community, LGBT community, the Black community, that it impacts us all. And I think everyone as a unit has to understand, because our community is so diverse, um it's the perfect platform to be able to speak about it.
And so I know you kind of addressed it already. I wanted to know your creative process. When you do your poetries, does it all like stem from like an idea or a memory, or is it all like kind of like fragments of a poem that you already have in your mind when you start to outline it and put it all together?
Yeah. I wish and I feel like my process would be amazing if everything came all at once. If everything kind of was wrapped up in a bow where I started off with one line and then another one shortly followed. My process is definitely based on inspiration for sure. So if I was given the opportunity, in about 2 weeks. They wanted two brand new pieces out of me. Um, that is a bit different because it'll be based on like a theme or the type of month, like what type of topic they wanted it to be about. My personal pieces, if it's not on what I'm going through in real time, then it's definitely an idea after watching an incredible movie or just listening to a song. So it really just depends on the type of process I'm in. I would say if I'm just writing for myself, and a lot of the times I do, if right now I'm stuck on a verse, and I had just posted about it on my
I've
story
seen it, yeah.
where
Mhm.
um where I think it's easier for me and it's different for other people to start with an amazing intro, something that captures the audience, whether it's an emotion or whether it's about a memory. I think what helps me if I'm stuck is I always ask for feedback, which is something I never used to do before. I used to keep my writing very intimate, very personal, but feedback can be fun because I would think I'm taking it in one direction. In reality, my friend will say something I didn't even think about before. And I'm like, okay, I can incorporate that. I can, one, credit her and, appreciate her for being, an amazing friend, but also that's something new and exciting that I did not know before that I'm now able to kind of see in a different light. So feedback has been something new that I've been incorporating in my writing process, as far as recording myself as well.
And how uh my next question for you in connection with that is how do you know when a poem is completely finished?
Ooh, really good question. I do look at my poetry as like a beginning, middle, and end. So I always have to ask myself, one, there's multiple drafts to it. And sometimes drafting could be frustrating because I try my best not to edit while I draft. So a lot of my pieces, there are a lot of, like me speaking to me, a lot of like I sentences, and I really tried to review my writing and just kind of ask myself, okay, what am I talking about here? Is this clear? Is this concise? Does this make sense? And if this is what I'm talking about, did I fully talk about the idea in its entirety, or do I have to make the piece longer? I've absolutely performed pieces that I ended up editing shortly after because, again, I'm reviewing it at a different light. So I'm looking at the piece more differently. I say the best way that I know that it's finished is, how can I say when it just feels right? I want to give you
Mhm.
a better sentence. I guess when I come to a resolution. I think a lot of my pieces, it talks about what I'm going through and then the outcome because of that experience. So I think that's the best way I can wrap it up too.
Awesome. And earlier you mentioned that you're also an entrepreneur and I know you have a creative side. Do the two ever clash? Because I know some people who are in like business and tech, but they have like no creative side to them whatsoever, you know? Um, in your experiences, having the two, right? Do they ever clash and how do you balance that out?
Ooh, I think there's three sides. There's the 9 to 5, the one that pays all the bills.
Mhm.
I get majority of my income from, and then there's the business side when it comes to. Actually, no, I'm gonna rephrase that. 9 to 5 creative side, because when it comes to my performances, that's the fun part, being able to network with people and and perform. That's the easy part for me. Business side is when it comes to, one, structuring my pieces, make sure it makes sense to the event, but also, let's be honest, as an artist, you're a walking brand, and there's so many things I'm still learning when it comes to being an entrepreneur, a business owner, and just social media in general. Um, and I think when it comes to networking and maintaining those relationships, a lot of the times I felt comfortable enough to gain a mentor or just ask questions and be like, hey, how do you run your business? Or, hey, I
Mhm.
see that you do something similar to me. Do you mind if I ask for some insight? I think it clashes when I'm not organized enough or when I'm not intentionally putting time in my day and focusing on my business. I think as humans, we get tired, we get lazy, and we may feel like 24 hours is not enough time, but in reality, we do a lot of things in between that are not necessarily productive. So they're constantly clashing. What helps me is having a schedule, and every Sunday is like my reset. I always look at my planner and I always try to plan ahead just to make sure one, it's in my calendar. If nothing's on my Google Calendar, it does not exist. And I say, and I say that every day because it's true. Sometimes I don't have the best memory and I'm very forgetful. And I'm not the best texter. We say it out loud.
Oh god.
Um,
Here we go.
I'm not the best texter. But yeah, I'm intentional in the fact of, I keep it to just Sundays. I keep it to just a certain time frame. After midnight, I don't necessarily like answer things unless I have the energy to, and I feel like it's not reflecting poorly on my mental health then. So keeping it organized, asking questions. I constantly go to workshops when it comes to like any sort of like marketing or media, just to make sure I remind myself I'm not an expert and I'm going to continue to be a student and I'm going to continue to evolve. So therefore, I need to be able to continue to seek out those new trends and also continue to ask those questions, because you never know if you're in a comfortable spot, but you could be a whole lot better if you kind of bring your pride down a little bit and just, you know, put yourself in their shoes.
Absolutely. And what's one lesson about leadership that you've learned as a business owner that you wish more people understood?
Ooh, one lesson as a leader, as a business owner. Know your foundation, know what grounds you. I think the best example was shown in a recent event where I was in a room with like other artists and other poets or other business organizers in the community, where there was an event that started off inclusive and then it gradually became very like limited to a specific type of audience. And we spoke about how as a community, we have to be able to hold each other accountable when there are certain events that, again, go against beliefs. And I'm that person where you have to know who you are in order to run your business. And if you want to be a leader, you have to be able to answer those uncomfortable conversations, but also stand on what you say you believe in, and make sure that if someone was to hold you accountable or confront you on it, be ready to have that answer. I think a lot of people, let's talk about it. I'm currently in the corporate world and people throw the abbreviation DEI so
Mhm.
many times around. um I think anyone can relate and say that those spaces can still be more inclusive than what they are in reality. So I think being as a leader, being as transparent as possible, but holding being able to be held accountable for certain things, and being able to not only learn to apologize but also continue like to grow as a leader. So take that criticism that you hear, take that feedback from that community and be able to kind of overcome them is an important skill. I'm still growing as a leader, but I say if you're not able to take criticism, you're not able to grow as one.
And you mentioned earlier about like things going on in the world, like you mentioned like DEI and the ICE raids that are going on in the country, or
Mhm.
the protests and all that.
Right.
Um, have you ever felt pressure to speak on certain issues, or stay silent because of your platform because you don't want to offend people or take make because people could just take things the wrong way, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Have I felt pressured? I would say in tumultuous times that we're in now, it's kind of hard to think about something else than the families that are being separated, that are being broken up. I know that we all live separate lives and we wake up and we have so many other things in our mind. Um, I think it's just important for me to continue to put myself in spaces that not only am I supported in, but also fully am capable and believe in the fact of, hey, I'm always so quick to just put in a name out there, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity. If you're ever looking for more artists, here's so and so. And I wouldn't recommend anyone a space that I didn't feel comfortable being in to begin with.
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily pressure. It's more or less, if I have to walk in what I say as well. And if I'm a person that believes that we shouldn't be discriminated against, or we shouldn't be being taken advantage of, or we shouldn't be being dragged out of our cars from ICE when we're in schools and hospitals and everything. um it's only right that I feel so compassionate about to even address it, or at least let people know, like, hey, if you're new to my platform, to my page, just let you know I'm pro X, Y, and Z. And I think that's the first thing I did when I realized what was kind of happening, when I was trying to kind of stay in current with everything, is while I'm not speaking out, while I'm not an expert, and I'm real quick to say that I'm not an expert, but I have an opinion on this. This is what my brand stands for, and if you disagree, we can absolutely have a conversation. But I also don't want anyone within my circle to not be able to have a respectful conversation, because then
Mhm.
that's not my loss, it's theirs. So
I completely agree because I am a huge component of freedom of speech and,
absolutely.
being able to. Because listen, we all have different, you know, beliefs,
Right.
ideologies, values, right? As long as we can have a healthy conversation between one another, I think
Right.
that will unite us more than separate us.
Right.
Um, and which leads into, because I could tell you're very mature. I could tell you're not someone that is closed-minded, which is something that is refreshing. Um, how has your writing or your mindset changed over the last year? Like, what would the you from a year ago be surprised to learn about you right now?
Ooh. Oh, okay. So, and we briefly talked about this prior to this interview, but two things.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
I
Mhm.
had someone give me the best advice in the world, um, because we live in such a fast-paced environment. If it's not feeling the pressure of being on top of, posting every day, then it's feeling the pressure of continuously working without rest and recovery in mind. Um, I had an amazing friend who told me that, you write for yourself, you perform for others. I'm gonna repeat that. You write for yourself and you perform for others, which means within the last year, I've dealt with so many personal um, things in my life, things that tested my faith, things that tested my relationships, things that tested um, not just whether I wanted to pursue me being a writer, but just I was second guessing my value as a person. I was second guessing my worth ethic. I was just not in the most healthy mindset. And I think having someone tell me that, you can only do so much. You have to remember what grounds you and what made you want to become a writer in the first place. And my writing was just always so intimate, so personal. Sometimes I can write and never have to perform it, but I write as just a way to express myself, to let the energy go, let it heal, let it go with the wind, and I don't have to worry about it or carry it anymore. Um, which leads back to my faith. I'm so grateful that I have so many people in my circle who constantly brings me back to God. And God plays such a huge part, because in those tumultuous times, I felt that I didn't really know myself in its entirety. And I felt so reassured in the fact that regardless of anything, my faith is never going to judge me. My faith is going to always hold me accountable with love. And I'm so just honored that I'm able to talk about that more in my writing, because before I was hesitant, because I never want to be a person that feels like I'm pressuring people into believing in something that they don't feel comfortable with, or they just don't want to. And again, I'm very open-minded to that. I have many friends from many different backgrounds, and I would never be that person to just hand you over a Bible and be like, this is who you have to follow. No, but me personally, if it wasn't for my faith, I wouldn't get to the version that you are talking to today, the healed version, the person who is looking for the positive in every conversation, the person who is constantly bringing up God in every conversation, in the fact that I'm just so grateful that he was able to kind of fill up my cup again.
That's
And
that's beautiful.
yeah, it's just, it's again, I would tell myself from a year ago, allow yourself to be vulnerable. I'll allow yourself to be comforted. Ooh, to be comforted. You are
Mhm.
deserving of rest and recovery, not because you work hard, but because it's needed. It's
Mhm.
part of the process. And that's something I had to learn. You can't be expected to fulfill and deliver if you're not constantly checking in on yourself. So again, I'm grateful that the more that I'm maturing, the more that I'm gaining those new life experiences, the more that I'm getting closer to my faith. Um, it all runs the same circle of you're doing the best that you can, and as long as you have that intention and that purpose, you're gonna be exactly where you need to be.
I completely agree, and I think that the only I'm a huge like I said, I'm a huge component of freedom of speech. I'm also a
Right.
huge component of self-love and self-care.
Absolutely.
Um, because no one's really gonna love you as much as you love yourself. And I feel like a lot of times we tend to just take our trauma, take our insecurities, whatever the case may be, and just throw it under the rug and just forget like it's there instead of
Right.
like prioritizing it and confronting it fully, so that you can grow. Like I could tell you're someone that is big on like growth and just continuing to find yourself, right? Um, which I guess leads to my final question for you. This has been amazing. You're such a great energy, everything overall about you. If you could
No,
leave
you're a great
one,
host.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I try. I love to like the thing about me is like I love to learn people. You know, like people I think are just whether you're I don't think anyone's completely evil or completely, good.
Right.
I think there's like that area where everyone just because of their upbringing and their experiences in life, it makes a lot of sense how they are the person they are to this day. Um, and everyone has a story, and your story is very inspirational. And I could tell that you in your community. I've seen, um, I wish I was in Bethlehem so I could, or Allentown so I could like go to one of your events for sure.
Yeah.
But one day we'll make it happen for sure.
Oh, for sure. After this.
Yes. And if you could leave one message behind through your poetry and your presence, something you'd want to echo long after you're gone, what would it be?
Ooh. Um, I'm gonna bring it back to my business name, Con Fuerza. With
Hmm.
obstacle, there's strength. So, how you're feeling temporarily, in this moment, if your heart is heavy, if you feel like that burden is too immense to carry, give it to someone else. Reach out. Reach out for help. I am going to continue to say I come from humble beginnings and I'm still healing from so many different things that happened 10 years ago, 12 years ago. But what I never lost throughout that entirety was my heart. And there's a lot of people who have gone through some of the have gone through trauma, and unfortunately it has made them bitter or it has made them lost. um but just you have to remind yourself how strong you are in the fact that you're able to be here today and tell your story, because there's many people who can't. There's many people who haven't reached that age or haven't reached that moment, or unfortunately were cut off before they can even talk about their trauma. So if you have that opportunity, take advantage of it. You are continue to be strong, because you are a lot more stronger than what you think, and you are a lot more stronger together, which means you are never weak to be able to reach out. So
That's awesome. Um, wow. I just want to give you the opportunity to um let people know any events that you have in the future, anything that you got going on, so that way people can connect and, watch you live or any events. You have the floor to tell us, anything you have in the future.
Yeah. Well, anyone who is watching, thank you so much just for your time and patience. Again, my name is Chana. I'm a spoken word performer. I'm a business owner. If you don't see me live, you will be seeing me in my upcoming writing workshops. That's going to be starting off at August 1st. I'll give Anthony the scoop after this interview. My next upcoming performance will actually be in collaboration with Millie Music on July 28th. So put that in your calendar. And if you have all of your July plans already booked, you also will get to see me on the Music Fest stage on August 7th as well at 9 p.m. So, yay.
Beautiful. Shauna, thank you so much for your time. Guys, go support her. I'm gonna leave her links to her page in the description down below after this video is uploaded, and go support her, please. We need to support our community and people like her who just want to see people do better and heal and grow from their trauma. They don't. I'm the type of person that I don't think that you should let your past define you, right?
Absolutely.
I think that it's important to remember it and accept it, but like learn from that experience and grow so that you could be the best version of yourself, and just have faith, continue to have
Absolutely.
God in your life, and I think we'll, be a better society after that. So
Absolutely. Thank you
yeah,
so much,
thank you.
Anthony.
No, thank you so much. And guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, go support her, and we see you guys in the next video. Take care. Perfect. All right, let's end the recording.